Hey, I'm out here making some beads and glass this morning. I thought it'd be fun just to go live and see if anybody pops in and wants to ask any questions while I work with glass. I won't be able to see the screen very well, so I'll try to talk about what I'm doing as I go. One of the annoying things that I like to do when I have new glass, new to me, is I like to make a little leaf shape sample piece. I have these little leaf mashers, and I am going to make a little keychain of different glass colors so that when I'm ordering glass, a lot of times what the rod looks like is not exactly what the glass looks like whenever it is fired and finished. And when this video replays or is available just to watch, I'll have some samples of those colors to kind of show what the rod looks like and what the glass turns out like whenever it is finished, so you can kind of see the difference too. This is a medium topaz color. I really love this color just because it's a very neutral color. I've used it lots of times before, but I don't have a sample piece of it, so I'm going to make one today. I've already pre-dipped my mandrels. That gray stuff is called bead release, and that allows me to put the glass onto this piece of steel, and it makes the hole for the bead that you end up using for stringing or wiring or whatever it is you're going to do with the beads that you get from me. So it just takes a minute. I've got to heat up that bead release and dry out any additional moisture that might be in it. Now I did this yesterday, so it doesn't have a whole lot of moisture left in it, being that I am in Arizona and it is rather dry here. Although we are experiencing some humidity. I think that's because of a hurricane towards South America. Now, soft glass, which is what a majority of beads are made out of, is very spicy, very shocky. It likes to pop and sizzle and crack. So you have to introduce it to the flame a little slowly. I start by putting it way out in the flame. Let's see if I can angle that way. And just kind of get it warm while I'm still heating my mandrel. Just going to get it warm. And once I kind of feel like it's gotten a little bit of warmth to it, I'll bring it closer into the hot part of the flame. Until I see the little edge of it here glow. You can kind of see the tip of that is starting to give a little glow. And then it starts to kind of bend. And once it gets warm enough, kind of warm a section of my mandrel where I'm going to land the glass. Get that on there. Just kind of holding the glass rod into the flame and my mandrel just under the flame, and I'm slowly pulling the melted glass off the rod and onto the mandrel in a slow, kind of controlled way. And I want to put enough glass that I can press it with my leaf shape to make my sample bead. the little sample bead doesn't take a whole lot of glass, so that's about right. I like to tip my rods when I'm done with them and just kind of leave them in a nice little point, but not too sharp, so that when I use them again, they're ready to go. I'm just warming up this glob of glass. I want it to kind of warm up, melt into each other. I'm going to make it a very smooth shape that will be ready for pressing into the leaf press. Now I'm not trying to heat the glass all the way through to the mandrel. I'm just trying to heat it around the surface and just below. With this colored glass, it's a little tricky because glass, when it gets warm, turns like a orangey color, orangey red glow. And this glass already has an orangey red glow, so it's a very subtle color difference that I can tell that the glass is getting very warm. And now I'm going to use my leaf press. I'm going to get the whole thing warm. And stick it in my press. Give it a little press. Oh, I didn't have quite enough glass, so my leaf is a little funky shape. That's okay. I'm going to add a little bit more just to get a better shape. Again, I want to warm it up kind of in the cold part of the flame, way out here. I say cold part, but if I stuck my finger there, it would hurt a lot. I have to keep the glass that's on the mandrel warm so that it doesn't crack while I'm warming up the rod. And since I'm only going to add a little bit of glass, I just kind of want to dot it on here along the bottom, maybe a little bit up here at the top. I'm trying to get the leaf point down here to look a little nicer. There we go. Now what I added looks a little kind of rough and globby, so I need to get that down into the smooth part, smooth it out. I do this in my backyard, so sometimes birds fly by and grab my attention for a second. Everything smoothed in now. It kind of looks like a Jolly Rancher. And I'm going to press it again, get it warm. pretty little leaf shape. Now it's got a little excess there at the bottom, so I'm just going to tidy that up a little bit and get that little smooch warmed up, and then use my cold rod to kind of pluck it off. I just want to get that tiny bit of excess, and then I'm going to rotate to the other side. And get the tiny bit of excess off of it too. And I'm going to melt my rod, smooth it in. So now my leaf looks a little bit more pointy at least. It's got a little bit of excess at the top. I may go ahead and try to get that off too. There we go. And you can kind of see from the warming and the cooling of the glass, it is a little darker than it was when we first started. It looked like champagne jello color at the beginning. Now it's looking a little bit more of that brown topaz color. And I'm done with this, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the kiln that's behind me and let it finish its baking process. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. All right. So that is what I wanted to do with that color. Now this is called straw yellow. So I am going to, it's a very, very pale wheat yellow, not like a sunshine yellow. So that is the color I am going to do a sample of next. And just follow the same thing. Now I have used the straw yellow before, so I know what color it turns out. I'm not expecting any surprises. The next glass I have on my table here is a little surprising. I've only used it in very, very small applications, so I really don't know what it does when it's larger, like this size. Same thing, I'm going to wind on the glass. Now this rod is not quite as thick as the dark topaz or the medium topaz that I was using, so it's going to look like it takes more glass. But really it's because my rod is so much thinner that it takes more winds to get a decent amount. When I'm winding the glass, I'm also looking at, I'm trying to overlap the layers a little bitty bit, and I'm trying to make sure that there is no air bubbles. If there are air bubbles, I just try to keep heating the glass until that bubble comes up to the surface. What I think is kind of cool with the transparent glass is I can see all the way through it while I'm creating, which is a lot of fun. And this is called a marver. It just helps me to smooth out the glass. It's made out of graphite, so it's very lightweight, and it can take a lot of heat. So I can tell based on this that I maybe need a little bit more glass, just like the last one, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little bit more now. If it ends up I put too much on, I'll get those little parts that squish out of the mold, and I'll be able to remove those like you saw me do on the other one. Now, because I know I'm going to need a little bit more glass, I'm actually winding this on instead of tapping it on like the last one, because I need a little bit more than I needed last time. And I know I'm going to need it towards the end of the bead where it needs to come down to that point. I won't need much more up at the shoulder, so I added the new glass towards the end. Again, I'm just going to get this smooth, make sure there's no bubbles before I give it a press. Straighten out the top. And then give it a center it in there and give it a press. And I did pretty good. I just have a little tiny bit of excess right there. So heat that up, take off a little bit, and then I'm going to use my marver up here just to kind of pat that edge to be more crisp. See? Looks nice. And I'm going to put that into the kiln as well. Straighten out my rod before I put it down. Now, as you can tell with the mandrel and the glass rod, I really can only make about one bead at a time. Sometimes, based on the shape, I can maybe fit 2 on here, but or maybe even 3. But the problem with the soft glass, if it cools down too quickly, it's going to crack. So if I do 2 or 3 shapes on one mandrel, I have to be careful to keep all of the beads warm while I'm working on the one, so that they don't crack, and then that time that I spent on that bead is gone. And it takes a couple minutes for each bead to be made. So it's a constant balance of going in and out of the flame and trying to keep it warm enough but not melty that it plops off the mandrel, but also cool enough that it holds its shape while I work on the other bead on the mandrel. I'm not going to do that today. I just thought it would be fun to pop on and kind of see how this Facebook Live business works and let you see a little bit of the process. Now, this next glass is really cool. I used a little bit of it once, but only as a small, like, decorative bit, so I didn't really get the full effect of what it looks like. On the outside, it looks like that light topaz color or the straw yellow that I just used. And what you probably can't see on the camera is there is a very thin line of orange going straight through the middle. And supposedly, when you heat this up, the entire glass turns some color of orange, and I believe it's going to be transparent because this glass is transparent, but I don't know how dark it gets or how transparent it stays. So we're going to find that out together right now. I didn't want to do that one first because I wanted to make sure that my flame and everything else was working well on glass that I was familiar with before going to a glass that I'm not familiar with. It's very humid out here today. Ugh. They feel like a fish out of water. Living in Arizona, I have gotten very used to not being humid. So when it's even just a little tiny bit humid, oh, you really feel it. Just trying to catch that little glow at the tip so that I know it's warming and can move it closer in. There it goes. Do you see it? It may be difficult for you to see because I don't have a spare pair of protective glasses to put over. But you can kind of see how it's turning orange already. So let's see what happens when we make a bead. Now this rod is about the same thickness as the straw yellow that I used in the last bead. So I know it's going to take a few more rounds to pull the right amount of glass off. And what's happening as I'm laying the glass, the brand new glass I'm putting down is kind of a light color, lighter color, and transparent. But then when I move past that, and I guess it's cooling a little bit, it is turning a dark color. Still looks a bit translucent, but I'm not quite sure. Because it does look pretty dark, at least in this. Now, it may change color again in the kiln as it goes through the firing process. I won't know until late tonight when the kiln is finished. Look how dark that is. And I can still see all the way through it, so it appears that it's going to stay translucent. I hope this gives one of like that marbly kind of effect. I really love when the glass has like little streaks or different colors popping up here and there. I think it looks really cool. can tell. Kind of got some streakiness in it, a little bit of translucency. Warm up a little bit more. Now in my glasses it looks kind of red. So I don't know how orangey it will be. If it's like a pumpkin orange or red orange. As I'm keeping it warm so that I can add a little bit more glass, it seems to be getting more opaque too. So this is kind of fun. All right, I'm gonna give it a little extra. There we go. Clean up my rod. It would be really cool if, when the leaf is finished firing, if it's darker towards the top, thicker part of the leaf and then gets more translucent as it goes down. I think that will look really neat. I don't know if that's what will happen, but it will look really cool if it does. And we're just going to smooth that out. I'm also using my marber to kind of create a little tiny bit of a cone shape. The press that I'm putting it in is wider at the top, like where the stem of the leaf would be, and then it's more narrow towards the bottom. So if I shape my glass kind of in the same basic shape, wider at the top, shorter at the bottom, I'll get a nicer press. Get it all nice and hot. Get it in the press and give it a squeeze. Ooh, that gives a really neat, a little bit of overage, but not enough to have to worry about taking it off. Just kind of cleaning it up a tiny bit so it doesn't look like there's a seam there. Like when you get plastic toys and there's a seam where it's been in the mold. Just want to give it a little tap. And now it looks opaque. So we'll be fascinated by what it looks like at the end. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show today, just something a little fun and different. And once this finishes up and the kiln finishes up, I will post pictures of what the leaves look like afterwards next to their rods, so you can kind of see the difference between what the rod looks like and what the end result of the glass looks like. Thanks, we'll see you later.